Now, wait for everyone else to get here. Just a couple more minutes. I assume now people start showing up right on the dot. It's usually the time.
The flurry, yeah, there's a flurry of activity.
Yeah, because they get an email note. Everyone, I guess, it sends out an email at right at 2,
Okay.
and then that probably jars a lot of people. I know I had one a couple days ago. Right after I was attending, I completely forgot about it until I got that email.
Right.
Are you gonna keep your webcam on for it?
Am I going to keep it on?
Yep.
I can't see what you're seeing, so it's hidden from me, but I keep it on if it helps people, connect.
Yeah. I see this on my display. It's like it's your slide deck, and then right above it is your face.
Yeah, that's typically what I think happens.
Yeah. It's not an overlay of your head taking up half the screen.
Right.
Trying to show a panel, and it's just your talking head. There we go. Okay, people are starting to roll in. We'll probably wait a couple more minutes before we formally start.
Are they able to hear us talking?
Yep, they should. If I can hear you talking, then they can hear us talking.
Okay, good. Yeah, folks, just hold tight. We'll start in a couple minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to get settled into their seats and get connected to the session.
Yeah, it's right on the dot at 2. I'd say you're good to start whenever you want to in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, we'll begin in another minute or so.
Yep.
All right, Ian, have you hit the record button?
Yep, we're good to go.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Greg Olivers. I'm a business development director here at Horizont, and I will be your host and presenter today. And we are here to talk about adopting hybrid work for return to office. So thank you for being here, and we'll go ahead and get started. And interestingly enough, we think hybrid work is something that is only just recently come about, but in reality, the origins of that even date back to the 1970s, when an engineer at NASA started working from home and called it telecommuting. So sometimes what we think is new is just a variation of something that was tried by somebody else. But if you look in the past decade or so, I think a lot of organizations have been looking to adopt hybrid work even before the pandemic, and had some modicum, maybe nominal success doing so. But certainly the pandemic has changed everything and opened the door for rapid adoption and strategy for a lot of the organizations that we work with. today. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to have a kind of a quick recap of what is hybrid work, and what does it mean for the organization, for the employee. What are some of the challenges that people experience, and where does technology play a role in supporting hybrid work, and then maybe some tips for success as you look to deploy that for your organization. So right away, let's start with what is hybrid work. And I think I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how we got here today. And it's a long storied history. It's more than 100 years in the making. And it started with things like the telephone. And the reason I bring that up is because, without the telephone, we wouldn't have had the ability to communicate with people, from floor to floor, from building to building, from city to city, state to state, country to country, and across the whole globe. And so that's the predecessor of everything that we do today in terms of speaking to each other with all the virtual technologies. Thanks to the phone, that's how we got here today. Oddly enough, believe it or not, the typewriter is also an essential element that helped us get started on the path that we're here today. It was the early way, 100 years ago, of documenting information in an analog format for recording details and information on paper. Sure, it created a lot of information and it was hard to go through, but it was a start. More importantly, if you look at the typewriter, one of the things you'll recognize is the keyboard. That keyboard is the bridge from how things were recorded to then to how we interact with the technology today in terms of inputting information into the computer itself. Of course, where would we be without electricity? The ability to have an office with powering all the assets that we use, providing lighting for the employees, would not have been possible without first having electricity to deliver to the office environment itself, thus giving us the ability to gather people. Another important aspect would certainly be public transportation, because if everybody went to work using their vehicles without, taking public transportation, we would have spent even more time on the roads than some of us do today. And most importantly, or more importantly than anything, of course, is the computer itself. It is the backbone of a lot of what we do today, is based on that technology that was first developed in the 30s and 40s for computational work. Today, it is part of a backbone of our business in terms of storing data, helping us design new products, manage processes, and automate various activities. And of course, bringing it all together is the office building. So for more than 100 years, a lot of us went to work in an office building, and that's where we spent a lot of our time during the course of the workday. Of course, that is now all changed, and now we have a lot of flexibility to work with. So we start looking at what is hybrid work, and from the start, there are a lot of variations of what it is, but if you break it down, these are the most common practices that people use. And from the humble beginnings, we saw the expansion of space for offices, employees to work. That is when people started to think differently about expanding the business. So first and foremost, what if everybody did not have to go to the office? What if the employees were given flexibility to work from home or from anywhere? And believe it or not, hybrid work had that foundation in telecommuting, which goes back to the 1990s, as I mentioned earlier. Although there can be many variations, the basic concept is you either work from home, or you split your time, or you work in the office. And I think if you look in the middle, that's probably where most organizations would like to be, having the employees in the office a certain amount of time of the week, and the rest of the time working from home or other remote locations. What are the benefits of hybrid work? So if we look, it starts with, an organizational perspective of reducing real estate costs. One important concept is to control the size of the real estate portfolio. What better way to hire more people without cost of acquiring more space? We also look to what can we do to increase the productivity? And one of those ways is to put more focus on work and employee happiness. And what better way to get more happiness is by spending more time focused on work rather than stressing out over the commute to and from the office, as we can see. This also gives us, adapt to what the employees are looking for and helps us focus as employers in terms of retaining the employees by giving them something that they want to be able to do without having them go look for alternative means of employment. And even from an organizational perspective, it gives us access to a larger talent pool, because no longer do we have to hire somebody within immediate proximity of an office. They can be hired from anywhere and work remotely, and only be in the office very rarely. Like, for instance, my work, I work out of the house and I visit my office, which is up in Canada, maybe once or twice a year. But I talk with my people every day using the tools that we have. But importantly, it's important to understand what does it mean to the employee itself, because that's the person that has to come in and do the work, and we need to make them happy doing so. It all starts with work-life balance. So hybrid work is an interesting history prior to the pandemic. Many employees were reluctant to work in the flexible office. The pandemic had a significant impact to the adoption of hybrid work. So right from the start, employees were thrust into working remote. This gave employees a new perspective on work-life balance, especially as it relates to commuting to and from the office. Not only to mention, of course, their employee health and safety, which was a big concern during the pandemic. Employees found their level of productivity to be the same or more when working from home. It is hard to say why this happened, but spending more time working and less time commuting certainly was a contributing factor. Now that employees are spending time in the office, they are leveraging the interaction with coworkers to collaborate. So there are times when they have to work with other employees to complete projects, share ideas, complete tasks, etc. So it is important sometimes for them to be in the office and take advantage of that time while they're there. Spending time in the office does not afford the employee access to company resources that are not found in the home or office. So not all of the technology that they need can be set up in the home. And so it is oftentimes very helpful to be in the office to use some of that capability that does not exist at home. And being in the office gives the employees an ability to re-engage with their coworkers, to understand how things are going and what's going on in everybody's life, so that there's more to being involved than just working, but also getting to know your employees at multiple levels and being a part of a bigger team and organization. One of the key aspects of being in the office, of course, is the concept of face-to-face meetings. This is one of the key things I think everybody tries to do, is to get their employees working together on that. And so using a virtual meeting room satisfied the requirements to gather a group of employees for a meeting. This worked well, but not without its limitations. For instance, sharing information, exchanging ideas is one thing, but employees missed out on gauging the reaction of their coworkers. I can certainly recall sitting in a meeting with my manager, seeing me raise my eyebrow, which was a subtle way of communicating my possible confusion. This is not easy to catch when sitting on a virtual call and the camera is off or some employee's reaction is not visible. Oftentimes, meetings employees may share ideas between themselves, which is not easy to do during a virtual meeting since they're not working side by side. One of the challenges of virtual meetings is the amount of activity not related to the meeting. How many times have we seen others checking their emails or working on other activities while attending a meeting? And in-person meeting does engage the employee's attention more of the time. One other thought regarding in-person meetings is the certainty of communication. Employees are less likely to raise questions or challenge ideas in a virtual meeting. Also, if there's an excessive amount of chatter in the room, the virtual attendees may not be able to distinguish one voice from another. I'm sure we've all experienced that sitting in on our Zoom calls or Teams meetings or whatever may be the case. So obviously, it's not just us, saying that, but it's looking at the data that's out there, the surveys that have been conducted. And Gallup conducted a survey back in 2022, asking employees what they got from that. And as we can see, the result of the survey substantiated that meeting with, and collaborating with colleagues is one of the top benefits of being in the office, along with being able to meet with and collaborate with their supervisors to get the mentorship and guidance that they needed to continue working on projects and tasks that they have. So it is important to be in the office and to leverage that in such a way that the employee sees the benefit beyond just doing the work and working from home. Now, working hybrid is not without its challenges. And again, if we go back to the same survey conducted by Gallup, there are some items that they did bring to the attention of people. Certainly one of those was that, less access to resources and equipment. There's only so much we can put in the home office that people feel with. And then the second is, are you connected to the organization that you're working with? I certainly communicate with a certain number of folks, but I don't get time to spend time with all of the different people within the organization. And I'm sure it's true for many of you as well. So what are the risks with when you're setting up that hybrid work environment? One is that it starts the work environment and the associated technology. Working from home is no longer sitting at the dining room table with a laptop. The employee needs a space designed for work with necessary peripherals like monitors and high-speed internet access. Working from home should not be limited by inferior technology and poor bandwidth. So we really need to equip the employees to be able to be productive and perform at the home office. We still have to be accountable for security for the organization, and we need to make sure that the information that we're producing is stored in a secure fashion and is not accessible from outside systems, and also that the communications that we have are secure as well. So security is a big concern when you're running a virtual operation and having people work both in the home and in the office. One of the things we learned about hybrid work is that change is always something that organizations have to deal with. Don't be afraid to adjust plans to introduce new approaches. For instance, your strategy may include the use of assigned seating. It is important to measure utilization for assigned seats as it is for bookable areas. No sense assigning a seat if the employee is not coming to this office, which again means that space may be used for other purposes. What are some of the people out there really telling us? What have we seen as we work with some of our customers out there? Now, in general, industry studies show that utilization should be around 50 to 60% for a lot of the organizations that we work with. And this speaks to the process of adapting to the hybrid work plan. But that's not always the case. In some cases, the people that we're working with, as they've actually implemented hybrid work strategies and trying to bring people back into the office, they're still at utilization levels low as 20 to 30%. So there are some changes that they will be going through to get more adoption and more people in the office as they start rolling out the plan. I think another thing, of course, and it's very interesting, is that the employee commute has changed. Employees experience a lot of personal change, especially around living arrangements. Some might have to find a new apartment that was more affordable. Others may have purchased a new home or condo that is in a suburban or rural area. The biggest impact of these kinds of changes may be the commute to and from the office. For instance, employees in Los Angeles are often noted for traveling 2 hours to work and 2 hours to return to home. Mandating office time without understanding some of these work-life balance issues may cause employees to look elsewhere, or at a minimum push back on the in-office requirements that many organizations are trying to deploy. With all the adoption of hybrid work, there is a place to accommodate traditional seat assignments, and for some it is still the way of business. For instance, one banking institution in the Western United States requires all employees to be in the office and every employee is assigned a seat. Further, they continue this process throughout the pandemic. Now, how does technology support the way of working in a hybrid model? One is that the technology experience has to be the same at the home or in the office. They need the ability to communicate and collaborate with software technology tools that need to work in either location. Working entails more than sitting at a computer to conduct business. It is the flexibility of being able to respond from anywhere at any time. The use of tablets and mobile phones have provided the means to communicate and collaborate with the same applications using different platforms. Employees communicate via messaging apps, virtual meeting, email, mobile phone, etc. This makes them readily accessible at a moment's notice from any location. And underlying all of this is the use of cloud technology. Data, files, projects, processes are all managed in the cloud. Employees no longer need to retain information on their personal computer. It is all accessible from the cloud. The employee computer is focused on the processing power, not the ability to store data. So let's bring this down to focus on facilities. What are the things that we need? Well, any good facilities organization needs an accurate, up-to-date inventory of their facilities. Ideally, this inventory should be connected to the CAD and/or BIM files that they'll be using to document the floor plans themselves. And the goal is to understand the inventory, how it is classified, how it is allocated to organizations, and how it is utilized by employees. Now, hybrid work really opens the door for every employee to leverage this facility's data. Employees are expected to manage their own activities. They should be able to locate coworkers to plan where they will sit when coming to the office. The same applies for finding a place to meet and scheduling the event and inviting participants, as well as booking their workspace and finding a feasible place to confirm where that space should be. This is all part of the employee experience, and it's much different now since they're more self-reliant, self-sufficient in doing the work that is needed. Since employees are most familiar with space they are working, then it only makes sense that they are the best positioned to report issues and concerns like temperature issues, non-functioning systems like AC or heat, lights being out, etc. It is not hard to develop a catalog of services such as ordering cabs, Uber, access to takeout, delivery, dry cleaning services, etc., that can all be readily handled by just making it easy for them to request from a single platform within the system. And employee engagement is a real key aspect of managing successful hybrid work plan. By using systems, we can measure the effectiveness of the program in real time and alert us to issues regarding utilization. We can establish benchmarks for different parts of the organization or different locations. By augmenting employee booking with badge data or sensors, we can get a true sense of the utilization of the space. Ultimately, we'd be able to determine if we have to do too much or too little of a certain type of space within the portfolio. So if we don't have enough collaboration space, if we don't have enough meeting space, we can see that by the data that supports what's going on in the facilities in real time, not by merely guessing. And to reiterate, it's important to have some key essential hardware to support the employees, as they're used to working with more than just their laptops and desktops. Tablets and mobile phones are an essential element of the work that they do. It helps them do their tasks from anytime, anywhere. Employees no longer sit in one place. They're on the go constantly, and they need to be able to access information at a moment's notice And oftentimes the easiest way to do that without carrying the heavier, items like a laptop is to use that tablet or phone for its purpose. Of course, another key element of the technology is the sensor that we talked about. It helps us get a better handle on utilization. You may want to consider the sensor technology. There are many options, but essentially you want technology to verify if the space is being used during the course of the day. You're not getting a detailed breakdown of every employee's movements, but an understanding of where people are and for how long. Now, what are some of the tips for success? For me, it's understanding the sources of truth within the organization. I've heard this called the gold source of data, source of truth, you name it. Every organization has their own concept of what it is. Anything regarding spatial data for buildings, floors, and rooms should be the responsibility of facilities. Even within facilities, there should be one group responsible for this data. That means design and construction supersedes the maintenance department, as an example. And that information proliferates all the other systems all the way up into the enterprise as is needed. Employee data is always tricky. Clearly, HR is responsible for identifying who's an employee and maintains all of their information. The typical process is to integrate facilities to essentially download the employee data. The one tricky part is employee location, which is typically managed by facilities, but is oftentimes stored in the HR system. The issue is the level of accuracy, as the information is updated by facilities, but does not always get updated in the HR database. These are the challenges that people face when trying to make sure that we have a good understanding of our facilities. Room scheduling is another area of overlapping systems. Facilities, again, should be the gold source for the inventory, but we often find IT maintains their own list of information for their asset inventory, as well as supporting the enterprise calendar tools that they provide to the organization. Next, what motivates an employee to be in the office? There are two sides to an effective hybrid work plan: management expectations and employee desires. At the end of the day, no plan can be successful without the participation of the employees. Implement your plan so the employee sees benefit, or else you may find them looking for employment elsewhere. Employees, help them see the benefit of collaborating with colleagues, clients, and vendors from the office environment. Demonstrate how being in the office gives them better visibility to management, along with getting the guidance and mentorship they need to complete their tasks and help them grow in their responsibilities. Take the time to understand what the employees' concerns are with real, work-life balance, whether there are family concerns, whether they're just plain commuting concerns, whether they're financial concerns. These all impact how an employee sees work-life balance nowadays. And remember that working with colleagues is another form of socialization with people and helps to deal with a sense of isolation that comes from working remotely. Many organizations have taken the time to design workplace to better support hybrid work. Ultimately, each organization will have to decide which are crucial considerations like flexible seating, collaborative space, and team meeting space that may be needed. This goes to adapting to the ever-changing needs of the employee. What you decide for today may need to be tweaked for tomorrow. The more data you have about utilization, the better you can plan and execute the future changes. And what can management do to help support? Managing hybrid work without explaining the plan will lead to employee dissatisfaction. Take the time to effectively communicate the plan to the employees. Inevitably, employees will share their experience and concerns. Use that information to adapt and change accordingly. Let the employee know you are listening. Rest assured, hybrid work is here to stay in one form or another. Some employees may wish to be in the office 5 days a week, but they can see a way to work remotely some of the time and still be productive. So with that, thank you for attending the session. I'm now going to open the floor for questions. So Ian, do we have any questions, or does anybody want to raise their hand to ask any questions?
Let me just open the question box real quick and see something here. We
Okay.
have one here, and it says, how does an organization get people interested in hybrid work and raise the engagement levels? So obviously we're seeing a lot of organizations put forward their hybrid work strategy, and there might not be as much buy-in as they were hoping for.
Yeah, so again, I think part of it is understanding the plan and what their role is within the organization. It's not going to be the same for every department, but it is the time to basically explain some of the key changes that are going on. Some of them may just be that they're not going to have a desk to go to and that they're going to have to book a space to work. But the idea is that by being in the office, there are certain things that they can do better than by not being in the office. And that's where the managers have to take the time and explain where those benefits are. And it can be something simple as scheduling certain activities that may help everybody work together and collaborate together. So it may be a little bit of planning until people get into a routine that they can manage themselves.
It's a great response. And then we just have one more that just came in. You mentioned the lower occupancy rates. How can an organization or a business get around that from what we're seeing with like you said, occupancy can drop up to like 20% right now. How do you navigate that going forwards and trying to make sure that you can get the most out of that 20%?
Well, one is to make sure that you are getting a good, accurate accounting of what people are doing. But I think if you're finding that occupancy still is at a 20% utilization, then it goes to that communication with the employees to find out what are the reasons why they're not coming into the office, and then also what do they not understand about how management wants to change the work culture to some degree. So I think it's a bit of that listening to find out what's going on with the employees and what is hindering that from doing so.
That's a good response. I know we're seeing a lot of, like I said, we're seeing a lot of stuff, not lack of buy-in. And I think that listening to the employees is something that we're going to see going forward. A lot more businesses start really buying into that mindset. Then hybrid work could become a lot more engaging experience for the employees, especially with the right technology and resources. I think that's the last of the questions we have.
Okay, well, we'll be here for a couple minutes, but in the meantime, we are doing a webinar series here. So next month on May 5th, we are going to have another webinar, and that will be now that hybrid work is here to stay, what's next? And so Ellie El-Kaim from our office and Sandra Panera from Relogix on May 5th will help unpack the data and trends around office space. So helping you prepare for the future of work starts now, and we look forward to seeing you in this ongoing series of webinars that we're conducting. If you have no other questions, thank you for attending. We do have a recording of this session. We will make it available to you. We will be sending up a follow-up email, and we'll probably ask you a couple of questions to get a sense of what's going on. So we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you participate in future sessions. So thank you for attending.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.